small till it ain't, till it ain't, till it ain't, till it ain't. I'm building up a wall till it breaks. She hated when I call and it's late. I don't wanna keep you waiting. I hope I never keep you waiting. She think I know it all, but I don't. Dr. Caitlin Myers, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Do we have to call each other doctor now? It's like
No,
doctor, doctor.
no, we don't. I don't know
I
why
don't
I
think
said that.
PhDs don't use that, do they?
What do we say?
Professor,
Professor? Yeah,
professor.
Professor Myers. What do you have? Do you let the students call you Caitlin?
Yeah, that is like one of the most awkward things to figure out as a professor. So I don't invite them to call me Caitlin,
Hmm.
but when I'm signing emails, I just can't bring myself to sign them Professor Myers. It feels awkward to me. So I sign them. It kind of depends. Either my initials or I will sign them Caitlin. And then if a student calls me Caitlin, I feel like I can't complain because that's how I sign my email.
Yeah. I at Baylor, I don't like it. So I say I don't correct them, but they don't at Baylor. They're all such polite, they don't call me anything other than Dr. Cunningham. But the way I kind of slightly prime it so that nobody does it is I sign everything SC.
Yeah, the
So nobody's
initials
gonna call me
approach.
SC. Yeah, the initials approach. So nobody's
Yes.
gonna call me SC. Yeah, no, I know. But at Harvard they all call me Scott. So
Oh,
anyway.
there's this difference I have found. I don't know if it is regional, but when I got to Middlebury, there was this kind of old school blackboard with the little white letters that you would like pin up to it that was the directory for our building. And all of the professors were Mr. or Ms. And I
Uh,
was like, everybody here has a PhD. Like, why wouldn't it be like professor, which is gender neutral also?
yeah, right.
Um, and I was told that there was kind of this norm in New England academia that used Mr. or Miss. I think it's this thing where you're just like like it's a veneer of modesty.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. But I found it surprising because I hadn't seen it in the South.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Well, I was thinking before we get started, I wanted to get your reaction to something.
Okay.
All right. So let me show you something. I might have done this before, but I want to do it again anyway. So this is William Shockley. He won the Nobel Prize in 1956 or
Uh-huh.
57. He ran Bell Labs, and this is
Uh-huh.
this article that he did on the statistics of individual variations of productivity in research labs. All
All
right.
right.
Okay. So I'm gonna go down here, and it's all about basically, as I understand it, it's basically this long thing about how scientists have very different productivity and it's very long tailed. Like
Hmm.
some people have lots of grants and some people have zero. All right. And so it's like it's all about the log normal distribution of productivity and that they need to be paid according to their marginal product. That's kind of the idea. All right.
He's clearly assuming we can measure what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trained as a labor economist.
Uh-huh.
And I like to joke that we can measure everybody else's productivity, but not our own.
Not our own.
Not our own. Like what I do is, yeah, it's kind of ineffable, but it's super valuable. Don't worry.
Right. Well, I wanted to show you this and get your reaction to this. All
Okay.
right. So he just kind of throws this out here. He just kind of throws this out here as he's talking about the production. It's funny, he doesn't really talk about the production of science. It's more about the production of publications or
Well, I was
grant.
seeing that. And grant, like that's what I was saying about productivity. Like, if it's the production of publications, we should all be talking about quality weighting. But
Right.
in any event,
Yeah, or publication or grants or patents.
okay.
It's like it's like the credentialing part, of like this of the knowledge, not just the knowledge, but like the formalized scientific production function is to say that it's true or whatever. So he says that the productivity is log normal. So he says another way of rationalizing. So there's a point to this. We're going to get to this part right here, and I want to get this is where I want your opinion. So I'm going to read this so that you can just be following along. Still, another way of rationalizing the log normal distribution may be based on the hypothesis that the interacting mental factors or inputs are of several different kinds rather than several of one kind, as in the case of several ideas as discussed above. For example, consider the factors that may be involved in publishing a scientific paper. A partial listing, not in order of importance, might be number one, the ability to think of a good problem. Number two, the ability to work on it. Number three, the ability to recognize a worthwhile result. Number four, the ability to make a decision as to when to stop and write up the results. Number five, the ability to write adequately. Number six, the ability to profit constructively from criticism. Number seven, determination to submit it to a journal. Number eight, persistence in making changes if necessary as a result of journal action. To some
Uh-huh.
approximation, the probability that a worker will produce a paper in a given period of time will be the product of a set of factors, which are what he just named, related to the personal attributes discussed above. The productivity of the individual would then be given by a formula, publication, F1, which would be ability to think of a good problem, times F2 times F3, and so on, the product of all of them. And so if one man exceeds another by 50% in each one of the eight, his productivity will be larger by a factor of 25. And that's why he thinks it's log normal. Okay.
Okay.
I just said all that, and I don't know how to
Okay.
ask this, but what do you think what's your reaction to his claim?
Well, my first reaction is, did you get to publish papers like this in the 50s? Like, is this, I want to publish a paper like this. I want to be like, hey, I'm just thinking about things. And
Right.
today
Yeah, right.
I'm
Right.
going to formalize my random musings with some math.
Right. Right.
Okay, so setting that aside, setting that aside that apparently we're all men, all
Right.
good.
Right.
I actually think this is a perfectly good list of kind of these attributes that contribute to productivity. I
Hmm.
tend to think they're positively correlated with each other.
Yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
curious to know what you think about that.
Sure.
I would like to hope that the ability to write adequately might be revised to
Yeah.
well. And
Right.
I'll add that this seems to, I'm not sure how to think about collaborative work. This seems to be like a little bit presented as, lone genius style. And you can imagine
Right.
that there are peer effects that could work here in complicated ways. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a good list.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this hypothetically for the sake of the listener. Let's say that someone in this, if this is true and this is their production function, which
Yeah.
by the way, it's kind of like it's a Cobb Douglas production function a little bit, where it's like everything's like A time, K times L, except
Sure,
that
but you
the
could imagine we might want to weight these differently. But I,
Sure.
I, I feel like he's just making his point
Yeah,
about the distribution, and I take his point.
right. So let's say that a person does have the ability, is very good at thinking of a good problem. They have the ability to work on it, everything, except that they do not have determination to submit the paper to a journal. That
Hmm.
one's zero. So
Yeah.
how many papers are they going to publish?
Well, if it's zero, obviously zero.
Yeah, because now if these were just added together, if it was a production
Right.
function, what would it
Right.
be then?
Right. Well, then there's like if the rest of it is good, somehow magically they have a perfectly good probability of publishing
Right.
despite never submitting. No, I
So
mean,
what do
I
you
think
think?
we might want to complicate this production function here, but
Yeah. But do you think that the idea that it's so two production functions of science of a person's productivity, one is that all these inputs get added together, and one is that they get multiplied together. Do you think that what is your response to the idea
Mm,
that one of those might be more accurate?
I tend to agree with the multiplying. What do you think?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. They call it the Anna Karenina principle. The
The
Anna
Anna
Karenina,
Karenina?
yeah, from like
Like
the Tolstoy.
Tolstoy?
Uh-huh. They
Like
call it
train
that.
station?
Yeah,
Okay.
the train station. They call it that because in Anna Karenina, one of the characters says, and it may have been Anna Karenina, somebody says, all, how does it go? All happy families are happy in the same way. All unhappy families are unhappy in their are like unhappy in their own
Uniquely.
way.
I think that's War and Peace,
Uniquely
though.
unhappy.
I think, isn't that War and Peace?
No, it's called the Anna Karenina principle.
So it must be
I
that
think
one?
so. It must be from Anna Karenina. Yeah.
Huh.
But I don't
Okay.
have the quote. I think you're right. I think the quote is more like unique. But it's funny because
No,
that's
no,
what this
no.
is.
It is Anna Karenina for sure. Yeah.
What's the
You're
exact quote?
100% right about the quote. Yet again, I am shamed in public.
Well, I've well, so that's the Anna Karenina principle, which is what
Yeah.
Cobb Douglas is, because this says you have to have at least some. Everybody that is successful, what is
Yeah.
a successful family? What does it have? Well, they may not have all these things equally, but they have non-zero amounts of all of them.
Yes. Yes. And you can fail in any of your own unique ways,
And
any
then
of
if
your
you
own unique
fail,
zeros.
you can be fantastic at seven. And if you are zero at one of them, you won't publish any papers. And I thought it was kind of interesting. There's not
That's
really anything in here that sounds like intelligence. It's
Ooh,
like
all
a
of
lot
these
of
are
grit
intelligent.
stuff.
Well, wait, wait, wait. The ability to think of a good problem,
Yeah, but is it
that's
like
intelligence, Scott.
it's like okay, maybe it is.
Combined with experience. I'm not going to say it's all intelligence, right? It's a to know it's a good problem, you have to have context.
Yeah, but is
But
intelligence the right word? Because like because it seems like I know very smart people that or like there might be very, very smart people who cannot think of a good problem. Like they're good in class, they might be all this, but they might not be able to say, oh, this is a good, that's like judgment.
yeah,
What do you think? I mean,
I
do you
think
not,
that's a form of intelligence. I
I guess
actually
it's a
tend
form
to
of
think
exhaustion. Yeah.
I don't
Okay, maybe
buy
so.
that. I don't buy that whole like really smart person who can like they're really smart but they can only do the problem somebody hands to them. I'm like part of being smart is the I think part of intelligence. Ooh, I think is like the ability to create.
Yeah.
It's the ability
That's,
to create something new.
it's, but isn't this kind of creative ability to think of a good problem? It's
Yeah,
not like getting 100 on the test. It's like
sure, but I just think that's
being
a form of
creative.
intelligence. I
I
don't know.
agree. I guess I'm just saying that um that these are like interesting perspectives on it because a lot of persons might have imposter syndrome and say, I'm just not as smart as somebody else. But he kind of frames it as it's interesting just at writing adequately or grit, benefiting from
Mhm.
criticism,
Yes, I that's partly
sending it to the journal.
persistence in making changes. That's the thing you said in an earlier episode that you like by the time you send it off, you're like, I am done with it. I don't want to, it's hard to keep coming back to it as the referee reports come back.
Yeah, but so I think you're very high on these things, not to be just flattering, but I think you're very good at coming up with good problems, recognizing them. You work very hard. You clearly know when a result is worthwhile. I've seen that repeatedly. You also don't just spin your wheels. You know when it's time to stop, and you do write very well. And you have no you just seem like you're really good at working through the journal system. I've just noticed it over the years. So I thought I'd show you that. Um,
That is
and
very kind in a week when I just got a six rejection on a paper that I think is one of my best. So
what's a
thank
six rejection? What is that?
sixth rejection. I
Oh,
mean,
the six.
obviously we're aiming high, but man, it's starting to hurt. I'm like, do y'all not see what I
Oh,
see here? Such is the
oh.
profession. Such is the profession. But
Well, if you say it's one of your best, it must be one of your best. I hope
I
the
think it
next person.
is. I think it
Yeah.
is. I think it's underappreciated. But I actually really love this from Shockley. And I hadn't heard this idea that it was like the Karenina principle and the idea that you fail in any one way. I like it
Yeah.
a lot. Um, I have to say ability is a really interesting word because I was arguing, I think, kind of inherently that ability is wrapped up with intelligence. But just to point out, obviously, like ability is also wrapped up with the resources that you've got, right? Like there are
Yeah.
all of these other demands on our time, which are not necessarily the same for different people. And then different resources, like different financial resources, different, like kind of how much time we have for research versus teaching. So it's, I think this is a super interesting way to think about productivity.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to think of places where my factor that's being multiplied together here has been low at different points of my career.
Well, of those do you think AI agents? How's Claude? If you had to guess, how do you think Claude's gonna? Do you think Claude's gonna augment any of those inputs for you?
Yes.
Which ones?
Ability to work on it. Claude is speeding me up so much.
Hmm.
I actually had a remote session running this morning. I was getting my hair done, got my roots touched up, got my fully blonde hair back, and I was sitting in the chair. It's very boring, Scott. You probably don't know about getting your hair done.
I completely identify with everything you're saying,
Okay,
actually.
good. Okay, so
I like
every
that.
5 weeks, I spend way too many hours in a salon chair thinking about how much time I'm wasting on vanity. But today I was sitting in that chair and I had a remote agent on Claude and I had my phone. I was like, hey, if you don't mind, it's probably rude and we could talk about the social aspect, but I was like, I'm going to work. And I had Claude code just running on my computer in my office. And I was like,
Oh my.
try this, do this. And like, I probably would have been equally productive sitting in my office.
Mm,
And so, yeah, just the ability to work on it has
yeah.
changed. This might
Hmm.
not be good overall, but
Hmm.
I think that's it for me. I feel like Claude doesn't really help me think of a good problem
Hmm.
yet. I don't know if Claude can recognize a worthwhile result because
Mm.
I'm afraid Claude is just too much of a cheerleader. No matter how hard I try to get Claude to be
Totally.
critical, Claude always is trying to spin it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're probably not, what about well, what about if you get into R&R and do you imagine that Claude might change that at all?
Absolutely. I had an R&R on a paper I was publishing in a health journal earlier this year. And so it's a short paper with students. But one of the things that I did was just like make a list, basically, the things I was being asked to do. And
Yeah.
then I was going through and doing them. But for each one, I would say, like, here's my change. Here is actually, it was before this year because I wasn't using Claude Code. I was like vibing it online. But I'd be like, here's
Yeah.
my change. And here's how I'm responding. And it both sped me up.
Mhm.
And I think it helped me profit more constructively from criticism because
Yeah.
Claude's kind of good at calming me down when I want to explain, when I
Yeah.
want something to be just like wrong or, Claude's like, well, there's this point.
Yeah.
It sped me up and helped, I think, produce a better response. But I haven't used it on enough R&Rs. I got a dry spell right now. I haven't had enough
Yeah.
R&Rs recently.
Well,
Such is life.
we have a what are we going to call what we do when we go back into our project? It's not an R&R. What is it? It's a Claude and Claude, or it's a project and project. What are we going to call it?
I don't know. I don't know what we're going to call it. I don't
All
even know
right.
what our project's going to be, but that is one of the things that's making it so fun is just having fun with a question and data.
Yep.
I
Well,
see
you
you're
want to
pulling
hear?
up slides. You're like ready.
You ready for this? You ready to learn? You ready to move on from two-way fixed effects decompositions and kind of get into the other way we're going to go about it? Some surprising stuff.
Heck yeah, let's go.
All right. So
Also, Scott,
anything? Yeah.
you know how I've been playing the part of the naive student so that I'm going to keep doing that.
Oh, yeah. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I do
Well,
it really well, I think.
last week we were both teaching each other everything. That was fun. So yeah, and on this, any questions that you have, I want you to be like Cunningham. Just you're going too fast. Start over, and then I will probably have never heard it asked that way, and so Yeah. Anyway, I'm just gonna help me understand this. I've taught this a bunch, but um, I still probably need help to kind of think this through. So this is what's gonna happen. So as you know, that paper is kind of got this double team thing going on. On the one hand, they're like two-way fixed effects is this thing. It's this weighted average, and some of the weights are negative. And if you go below the average distance to the nearest clinic, you're going to get negatively weighted. And if you go far away from it, you're going to be positively weighted. And if you're at exactly the average, you're going to be zero weighted. And so that was this whole thing. We went through it. And now they're going to say, all right, we're not going to use two-way fixed effects with continuous treatment, but we are not. What we're going to do instead, first, before we get started, is we're going to lay out the causal parameters that you can get with continuous treatments. All right.
All
And so
right.
we're going to start out there. And one of them is going to be the ATT. One of them is going to be this new thing that I'm going to hopefully do a good job at. And they're going to talk about
ACRT.
ACRT. And then we're going to talk about parallel trends. And then we're going to talk about a program. And we're going to talk about how to do it in Stata. So hopefully we see how far we get. All right.
All
So
right. So
we had
like
this.
this will be a 24-hour episode.
Yeah,
That'll
this is a 24-hour episode. We'll see how far
okay.
we get. You keep time and then you tell us when we got to quit.
Okay.
All right. So last time we had this beta hat and we had different numbers, right? It was like one sometimes it was negative. It was negative 0.006, wasn't it? Was it negative
Yeah,
0.006?
roughly, yeah. Yep. When we reduced it to two periods, remember? So,
Yeah.
we were reducing it to basically a 2 by 2 for every county, and it was, yeah.
Exactly. Right. Right. So we were like, okay, we had that negative 0.006 weighted least squares where we weighted by the population. And we had kind of done what Pedro Sant'Anna calls backwards
Hmm.
engineering. He says
Right.
like run a regression, figure out what it equals, as opposed to what he calls forward engineering. And forward engineering is says, here's the target parameter, the average treatment effect or whatever, build an estimator that gets it. That like so
Hmm.
that's like the way econometricians are. All right. So
Yeah. Interesting.
so
Yeah.
we have to kind of, if we take this approach, because he's one of the co-authors on this paper, if we take this approach, we have to start with, well, what is our goal? And the researcher, the applied microeconomist, they often say, well, our goal is to estimate the effect of distance on marriage. But see, the econometrician doesn't think in the social scientific way. They think in terms of, no, I need to know what average of what causal effect for what person. And they say, write down potential outcomes for a population, and then what are the weights you're going to use to get it? And that's going to be the goal. So they're going to introduce one is, the traditional average treated on the treated because it is
Mhm.
diff and diff. It's average treated on the treated, but it's going to be average treated on the treated for a given dose, right? And then the other is going
Yeah.
to be the average causal response on the treated, right? So we're going to hold off on this stuff.
And let me ask you about your notation here, Scott, because you have ATT, and then in parentheses, you have D conditional on D.
Yep.
And then below it, you have ACRT, and in parentheses, D.
Yep.
You can explain to me why one is
Yeah, I am.
D
And
bar D.
it's like
Okay.
I
Okay. I'll
think
wait.
that I think that this is kind of the most awkward part of the paper. So what I might do is show the pictures first and then explain it. So
Okay.
I will do it. But you know what the ATT is.
Yep.
Y1 minus Y0 for a treated unit
Yep.
group in a particular period. So it's like
Yep. And of
population.
course, yep. And of course, we can't see both of these. We can't see Y of 0 for the treated unit because we can't see their alternate universe.
Exactly. So like
Yeah.
we're always missing this one. That's a great point. So we're always missing this one. So we have to use groups of units that have that one and just take it from them. And under
And
parallel trends,
assume that would have been the same.
exactly.
That's the problem, is that inferential leap.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so for folks not following along on the slides, we're just looking at the kind of classic definition of an average treatment effect on the treated, which is the expected value of their outcome given that they're treated, minus the outcome if they're not treated. But of course, they're all treated, so we can't see their outcome if they're not treated, and that is the problem.
right. So but that's a really good point. So it's like of this difference, the treatment group has that one, so that one's not a
Right.
problem.
We see their outcome treated. We
We
know
see
that. It's
their
the
outcome.
counterfactual we can't
We're
see.
just missing half of it. So we
Right.
have to find people that have that one and then figure out under what conditions are we willing to replace it. And
Right.
parallel trends is the permission slip to replace it. So if you
Hmm.
say, if you assume that the counterfactual trend would have been the same as the group, then we can just insert it right in. And so
Hmm.
that's the idea. But this is going to be relevant for here because we're going to need to use these zero dose units. These zero
Yep.
counties are gonna play a role in it. All right, so there are two parameters. One is what is the effect of being uh, far from the clinic compared to being right on top of the clinic.
Hmm. I always say
So
when distance is zero, you live inside the abortion clinic.
yeah, okay, all right. So you've been thinking of it like that, right?
I mean,
Exactly.
obviously not really. Nobody lives in an abortion clinic.
But it's interesting though. That's my point. So what's the clinic that goes the further? What's the one that has the largest distance in the post treatment chain?
There are ones up in the panhandle, like probably Lubbock or somewhere around there, that they're at like 300 miles.
300
And this
miles.
actually, your question ties into something that I got confused about last time, and I'm going to get confused about again if we don't nail it down for me again right now.
Okay.
So when we talk about D, the dose, we've got a bunch of counties that are a certain distance away from a clinic. And also
Yeah.
all of their distances has changed, right?
Right.
So is D here the change in distance?
I believe so.
Okay.
That's the way we've historically done it, right? Because if we had
Okay.
put in two-way fixed effects with county fixed effects, it would have been the change. So I
Right.
believe that that's what it is. That's a really good question. That's what I've been operating off of.
Okay.
But I've been operating off that assumption because I've been so thinking in terms of the two-way fixed, the Poisson fixed effects. But I think so.
Right. And I think a lot of times when people think about a dose, they kind of assume that like everybody starts at zero and then people get treated at different levels. But in our case, there's no county starting at zero. There's no county
Right.
that has actually got a population centroid in an abortion clinic. And so
Right.
everybody's starting at some positive dose,
Right.
like some positive distance, and then
Yeah.
it's increasing. And that's why I'm trying to make sure I understand if the dose is the increase or
I
the level
think that what
distance.
I think what you have to do pragmatically is just say a zero dose is some small number.
Okay. But
And
is
I
it,
think that the
yeah,
dose,
because you're,
I think, go ahead.
well, a zero dose could be, that's why I was asking you. You said you were conceptualizing dose as the change in
The
distance,
change, yeah.
in
So
which
maybe
case
it's
we have zeros.
do we have zeros? Yeah.
We have
So I think that's
zeros.
because that's our treatment, right? Our treatment is the change. Like now you have to drive this far. Additionally, right? And that's
That's
the
how I
wouldn't
think
that
of
be
it. Yeah.
that's how I think
Yeah.
of it. Okay, let's assume it is.
Okay.
So, all right. So we we
Until
have
we run into trouble.
do we run into trouble? Yeah, exactly. That could be happening pretty soon. So effective being at dose D versus being at zero is the ATT. So that means like the ATT for Lubbock is 300 miles compared to no miles.
Right. So
That's the
it's
ATT.
it's a 300-mile increase compared to no change.
Yes,
So how much did marriages, the ATT would be, what is the difference in marriages in Lubbock if they have a 300-mile increase in distance versus no change in distance? That's what we're,
exactly.
yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it is. So it's like, but the point is like it's always the counterfactual is not for Lubbock is not going from 250 to 300. For this parameter, it is what is my marriage is at 300 versus what is my marriage is at zero.
Well, what is my, yeah, but what are my marriages at a 300-mile increase versus what are my marriages at a 0-mile increase?
Yeah, if that's how we're doing it, is the 0 mile increase. That's
I
got to
mean,
be
this
right,
is the
right?
question I keep trying to nail, like I keep trying to nail down to make sure I really get it. Um, Scott looks pensive.
Isn't it? Doesn't it? That's what why would it not be?
I don't know. I'm just making sure I understand if it's the change in distance or the level distance.
Ugh, what's our variable? It's distance.
It's distance.
We should figure that out.
Yeah, we probably should.
We should probably figure that out. Uh, we should figure out
Agreed.
what our project. We should figure out what our project's about. Yeah, okay. Let's ask Claude real quick. What is it? Hey, hypothetically, I know the answer. No, hypothetically, no. So, do you think that our project is about in our project, that our project, the dose is change in distance, or is
Yes.
it the distance? Because, right?
I
Because,
would put maybe the level
or
distance.
the level distance.
And I would give it the exact, actually, let's give it this example. Like, e.g., suppose a county in Texas is 50 miles away from the nearest abortion facility before treatment, and then that distance increases to 300 miles. Is the dose 250 miles or 300 miles?
Is the dose 300 miles, or is it 250 miles in this estimator, in this design,
Yeah.
in this design estimator? All right, let's see what he says. Golly. How's this going to change things if it, because it's definitely the change for the Poisson fixed effects, right?
Well, I mean,
Because
I
you're
think of
using
it
the
this way. I
within
think that
variation.
we're using the change in distance to identify the effective distance. Oh, right. So the dose is the change. You were right, Scott. The dose is the
Ooh.
change. Good.
Oh gosh, that was scary for a minute. This
But
is
it's good
window
because I
edge
think
at
we
all.
just need to be really careful in how we describe it, right?
Yeah,
And it also does mean that we do have counties that are completely untreated in the sense that their dose is zero. They have zero change in distance.
yep, yep. Right. They were always far and they stayed far or something
Yeah.
like that.
Or they were always close and they stayed close, but nothing changed.
Right, right. All right.
Okay.
So, okay, here we go. Dosage parameters. Here's that thing you were asking about. All right. So
Yes.
here's what it means. Do you take all right, I used to take melatonin. I don't take it right now, but I take
Oh, I take it every night and I have these little gummy ones that
oh
unfortunately I
my
think taste
gosh,
like
they're
candy.
so good. I used to just like literally
Yeah, I
just
don't think it's good for you.
yeah, it's not. I know. I quit taking them. I'm saying they taste too good.
Yeah.
They taste too good. All right. So let's say I took 10 milligrams. Let's say
Hmm.
I was a 10 milligram consumer of melatonin. All right.
Okay.
All right. So that's what that means. The second D.
The
So it
dose is
goes,
10 milligrams.
yes. So no. That's not what
Oh,
I mean. That's not it.
okay.
ATT parentheses for those listening, it says average tree on the treated, parentheses, D, conditional on D. So that's why Caitlin was asking this thing about D showed up twice. So this is the person, and this is the person's dose. So I am a 10 milligram person. What is my average treated on the treated if I took 10 milligrams? Versus I am a 10 milligram person. What is my average treated on the treated if today I took 20?
Okay, so if we were back in a binary treatment world, would we call this ATT one conditional on one, meaning given that you are a person who is treated, what is the effect of being treated? And this would be like, given that you're a person who takes 10 milligrams of melatonin, what is the effect of taking 10 milligrams of melatonin? Is that how I understand it?
Well, this is the deal. Because it was binary, there you couldn't go up or down. That was the thing with the traditional ATT. You're like, if you're at a one, which is what that would always was a one,
Yeah.
that's all it could ever be because it was binary. But now what happens is that you're a group of person that in equilibrium. All right. You're a person in equilibrium that is eating 10 milligrams of melatonin, but I have a whole bottle and I could try five, I could try 15, I could try 20.
So
I
you
am a
could,
person though who is a consumer of 10.
So what happens? So for instance, suppose you're a person who's a consumer of 10, and we want to know the effect of you taking 15.
Yeah.
Would that be ATT 15 given 10?
Yeah. So no,
And
it would be
suppose,
no.
no?
See, it's
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So sorry. It would be for a person who usually eats 10, which is this part.
Yep.
What is the effect of 15, which is this
Right.
part?
Right.
Yeah. So
And
that's
it's
what you
not the
said.
effect of going from 10 to 15. It's
Exactly.
the effect of 15 versus none, but
Exactly.
conditional on you being a 10 type.
Exactly. A 10
And so
type.
similarly, let's suppose I'm a 20 type.
Yep.
I really like those gummies.
I know.
So if I'm a 20 type, we could still talk about like ATT 15 given 20. But for me, for a 20 type like me, that would be the effect of 15 versus nothing.
Yep.
And maybe it's the same for both of us. Maybe it doesn't matter what type we were
No,
to begin
well,
with.
that's
Maybe
the thing.
15 affects us both equally, but maybe
You're
it
taking
doesn't.
20, I'm taking 10. You could go down to 10, but that doesn't mean that
No,
we have
thank
the
you.
same effect. That doesn't mean we have
Right.
the same effect.
But we
Because
could. Doesn't mean we don't.
we might not,
Okay.
right? Like,
Got
because
it.
like you could imagine there's people that get um 16 years of schooling and there's people that get 12.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that, and they each earn money and they each have a causal effect from schooling. But if the 16 goes to 12, will they earn the same thing? Maybe,
Right.
maybe not. And if the 12 go to 16, will they earn the same thing? Maybe, maybe not.
I'm getting a
Because
feeling that heterogeneous effects are a big issue here.
yes, that's the deal. The unrestricted heterogeneous treatment effects just has been causing mayhem for decades.
But let me ask you this though. So in our context, let's stop talking about my melatonin habit.
Okay.
In our context, the dose is distance,
Yeah.
and we have a bunch of counties that at baseline have different distances. We have counties that are like really close to abortion clinics. We have counties that are really far from abortion clinics. And then they're all getting different changes in distance.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure how to think about that because their baseline isn't a baseline change. Like their baseline is like if you're in a county 50 miles away from an abortion clinic and you get a 250-mile increase,
Yeah.
that might have a different effect than if you're 0 miles away and you get the same increase. But there I'm
That's right.
thinking about nonlinearities.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Perfect. So absolutely. Absolutely. So uh okay. Well, it's taken, yeah. So we've established that it is the dose, the change, right? So
Mhm.
we've got people who start at 50 and end at 50, so they're a zero. And we got people that start at 10 and stay at 10. They're a zero,
Mhm.
right? And then you've got people that go from they're 50 away and they go to 100. Now they got to drive, they have to drive 100 miles,
Mhm.
right? But it only went up by 50. And then there's some people that were at zero and now they got to go to 50. Technically, that if the dose is 50, if the dose is a change, then they're all being grouped together and this is their
Right.
average. This is
Got
their
it.
average.
So if it's nonlinear, this won't necessarily take that into account?
Well, it is going to be like if it's nonlinear and the dose is changed, then I think what it's going to do is it's just going to be like a weird nonlinear because it's going to be like if you say, I'm going to bend it by 50 miles, you're not saying I'm bending all the 50 milers together. You're saying I am bending all the delta 50 together. And
Yeah.
that's like a bunch of weird, that could be a weird mixture of groups, but that's fine because the treatment is about increasing 50. That's all that the treatment is,
Okay.
in that sense. And so you're just about taking people from one equilibrium to this and increasing it. And that's the dose.
But just to make sure we're kind of on the same page about this point, I think I think we both expect, based on our past work and other people's past work,
Yeah.
that if you start, let's say 0 miles away from the nearest abortion clinic and
Yes.
distance increases by 100,
Right.
we think that has a bigger effect than if you're already 300 miles away from an abortion clinic and it
Totally.
increases by 100, right?
Gotta. Yeah, it's gotta. Because you're already like you're already taken off from work to go 300, right? It's like you're
Or
going
like I would put it this way, if the people who are stopped by the first 100-mile increase, don't
Yeah.
care how much farther away it gets. They're
Yeah.
not like stopped anymore. They've already been stopped, right? Like they're not getting the
Right.
abortion. And
Right.
I
Right.
guess
Right.
what I'm trying to understand here is like, so that means 100-mile dose, right? 100-mile increase could have a different effect depending on whether you're 0 miles away to begin with or 300 miles away to begin with. And if I'm understanding what you're saying, because the dose is the change in distance,
Yeah.
this model doesn't do anything about that yet. Like I shouldn't be thinking about that yet.
I think so because if it all comes down to if we're right that the dose here is the increase in distance and
Yep.
it will group together heterogeneous counties for whose distance increase is going from 200 to 300 and 0 to 100. They're being it's not that it's like it's fine. Like they are going to be getting the same dosage because dose in this sense means increase,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And then it's just a matter of like, well, somebody that was already far away, their treatment effect is not very big. I mean, it's all relative to Y zero, but
Yep.
but it's fine because you're just averaging them. So it's like
Yep.
whatever that average is what it is.
Yep.
So, but although look, I mean, it is he doesn't get it right. He's saying, what is the effect of being 100 miles away?
Right.
Uh,
So
he's
isn't
got
that
this.
yeah,
Yeah,
Claude says, what is the effect of being 100 miles away compared to being 0 miles?
yeah,
And if the dose is the increase, then it's what is the effect of a 100-mile increase? And it's not the same thing.
no.
By the way, do you ever just stop and think that if like somebody invents like a universe splitter that will be out of work?
A
Just like
universe splitter?
yeah, you just spawn off all these multiple Texases where
Oh,
different
yeah.
clinics closed, and then
You get
you
to
just
peek in them. Yeah, you just
yeah, you
get this
take a
little
peek at what
little
happened,
telescope and
and
be like, oh, and you just write it down. You just
yeah,
you write down the answer. Yeah,
yeah,
probably. He says
yeah.
he says he did it wrong.
Oh,
He says
I
no,
feel better for
it's
being
about the dosage.
confused.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like I think I've been a little saying two things at the same time, maybe. Because
Mm,
I think I knew it was change, but then if I wrote it down, I think I was always saying, well, I think sometimes I might have obfuscated a little bit. I wonder. I need to,
I think it's particularly useful in like it's really helpful for me, I guess, to think through this because I believe there are probably nonlinear effects.
yeah,
So these distinctions really matter
yeah,
for me. Like just kind of been thinking about what's going on. So Claude's like fixing it all up.
yeah. He's fixing this up. He just fixed it, and he's probably doing some more fixing. But yeah, so. We have some homework. I think we got to make sure that we're right.
Hmm.
That we're right. Okay, so here we go. Here is a person A. Here's a person A, and this is their dose response picture. All right, this is aspirin. And this over here is the ATT, reduction in headache symptoms. So
Hmm.
this person takes 25 milligrams of aspirin, their headache falls by 20. If they take 50, it falls by 30. If they take 100, it falls by 45. Right?
Okay.
So this is like the equivalent would be like a marriage rate change for a given change in the county dose or change in distance. All right. So
Okay.
this would be like a dose but it's for a given county. Think about it like this. So it's like Lubbock has a curve associated with it, right? He could go because Lubbock can go. This is Lubbock. He's at 300, but you could lower it.
What would have happened to Lubbock if Lubbock wasn't a 300, right? What would have
Exactly.
Lubbock been if Lubbock was a 0, a 10, a 50, whatever, right?
Right.
And so
And
here we're conditioning on this being an A type
yep,
and then tracing out what their response would have been if they gotten different doses.
exactly.
Okay.
So then what do you think this one is?
Oh, well, let's see. So Scott just presented me with another graph, and on the x-axis we have aspirin dosage in milligrams, and on the y-axis we have reduction in headache symptoms. And we've got it traced out, it looks like, for two different people. So we've got a A type and we've got a B type. And so I think what I'm seeing here is that our B type has less reduction in headache systems for a given dose than our A type. Like they're just less responsive to aspirin. Is that
Yep.
what I'm supposed to be seeing?
Yeah, so it's like if this was our melatonin example, This would be, well, you say that you take more if you lowered it. Yeah.
Maybe I would not, maybe I don't respond as strongly to melatonin as you do.
Yeah. If like that was true, it might
So
be
maybe I
cross.
would sleep less well at a lower dose than you would at a lower dose.
Yeah, something like that. In this case, it's like if a person was person A and they took 100 milligrams of aspirin, that they get these big return. If they lower it to 50, they get that return. I am a 50 milligram person. I get this one. So if we all, what this is representing is heterogeneous responses to the same dose, because at the same dose, you and I have different responses.
Right.
But
Exactly.
you,
Although I think like what you're saying, like going backwards on these curves does make sense to me, but I also think like the way the ATT is defined,
yeah.
maybe the more direct interpretation would be comparing the A and the B type. We'll call them me and you, I guess. Should have made this
Mhm.
melatonin, but what
Yeah.
they would get versus taking none, right? Because that's what the ATT is estimating. It's like what do each of us get versus taking none? Except for
Yes.
we're both types who are taking different amounts to begin with.
Well, the ATT is relative to none.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so
And
this,
so when
this,
you like interpret it going backwards on the curve, like we were talking about what if we took less, but
right.
really a way we should think about it is like I'm a high type, you're a low
It-
type,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Let's
Right,
compare
right,
what happens to each of us if we take none versus 10 milligrams.
right.
Maybe you sleep better than I do.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So
Yeah.
this is like
Right.
relative to none, but you gain more, headache symptoms reductions from yours than I do, or
Okay.
something like that. All right. So then you can move along the dosage. All right. But it's not necessarily, but you can move along the dosage, but it's not the ATT. So it's like the difference between you and me, even though both of
Right.
us is an ATT, that movement is not a causal parameter. That's just two people and a difference between their ATT. So like if I had correctly gotten your ATT, maybe through diff and def, and then I got my ATT, right? It would be like you would say, Caitlin takes 10, 20 milligrams of melatonin, and this is the benefit in sleep. And Scott takes 10, and this is the benefit in sleep. So
Right.
wouldn't it imply that if Scott just increased his by 10, he would increase his sleep patterns would improve by this much? Because then it's not. Because Caitlin Caitlin's ATT is for a given curve, and my ATT is for a given curve. And if we just compare two groups, even though we both have the correct causal effects, it doesn't mean that when Scott goes up to hers, that his ATT will go up by that much, except for in one situation. Does
I
that make
think,
sense?
well, I think I get this. When you say except for one situation, I assume that situation is everybody responds to the dose the same.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
the question I have for you as somebody, okay, let me get controversial here.
Okay.
Scott, I think there is a certain population of applied microeconomists out there in the world
Yeah.
who think that new diff and diff is lovely, fun exercise and all, but that like your results don't really change that much usually because maybe
Yeah.
effects aren't so heterogeneous. So let
Ah,
me play the part of one of those economists
okay.
in our particular paper. In our
Yes.
particular paper, what if I argued to you that I didn't have any reason to believe that different Texas counties were going to respond to distance differently? I thought they'd
Yeah.
all respond the same. Would we have a
Mhm.
problem?
No. Okay, it depends. It
Okay.
depends. You might be saying, so, okay, let's say for the sake of argument that the distance change was random. Like it
Hmm.
was purely random. If
Hmm.
it's purely random, then that means that the people who are like 300 miles away and the people that are 5 miles away,
Just chance.
on average, by chance, on
Yeah.
average, they're the same. In which case, they all have the same average response curve. You can have diversity of responses, but you've grouped them together such that all of those unobservables and all those potential outcomes are equally distributed for the two groups.
But you
So,
did that as a level again, and I want to talk about it as a dose. The dose is the change in distance.
Yeah, well, this that the part is the dose is the change. The dose is
Okay.
the change.
So then we've got
So
to assume that whether you have a 300-mile increase in distance is randomly assigned relative to if you have a 50-mile
yeah,
increase, right?
yeah,
It's the
I'm sort of
increase,
speaking
it's the
abstractly.
shock from HB2 that has to be randomly assigned,
Yeah, yeah, which
not,
it's not, but that's right. It has to be random. It has to
okay,
be, sorry, okay. It has to be independent of the treatment effects. That's the
right.
main. It
So
doesn't have to be random. It just has to
the
be
places that got no change in distance would have responded just the same if they'd got as the places that got 300 miles if they had gotten 300 miles, right?
yes,
Like,
exactly.
okay,
Because if you think about it, think about a randomized experiment. Think about a randomized experiment where they're doing randomized melatonin, and they have three groups: a placebo group that gets nothing, a group that gets 10, and a group that gets 20. Right? Is there anything different between the three groups? Like let's say it's like a giant population. There's like, is there anything
right,
different between them? They're like, it should be the same sex ratio, it should be the same
okay,
percent white, same average age,
right,
same average Y1, same average Y0, same average treatment effect. On
right,
average,
right.
everything's the same. In which case, there is one curve per group.
And no problem.
No problem. It does not, heterogeneous treatment effects is not, because think about it, heterogeneous treatment effects is never a problem for our RCT. It's just the average. And you can estimate those regressions all day long.
But I'll
It's
say
where
with
it's,
an RCT, you're assuming you got balance, right? So if for an
yeah.
RCT where
Mhm.
it was well executed and you didn't get really unlucky, a balance like
Yeah.
you got balance, right? Like your
Yeah.
groups were similar. But I'm saying even if they're not similar, if you want to make an argument, suppose one wants to make an argument
Uh-huh.
that the differences between the groups have nothing to do with how they respond to the dose,
Right.
you're still okay.
Yeah. You're still okay. That's a
But
particular kind of treatment
this is
assignment
for a
mechanism.
2 by 2. Like this is very specific, I think, in our case to spatial heterogeneity, to the question, like, to whether the counties are responding similarly. And I'm kind of just making the devil's argument, like as devil's advocate, what if I just think they do?
Right.
I do think there's like a whole separate issue of what if the treatment effect evolves dynamically over time, but I'm going to set that one aside
Yeah.
because
Because these are just two by twos.
yeah.
Right.
So let's keep going. Okay. I
Yeah,
think we're on
but
the
you
same
can see
page.
though, but you can see why it might not be random in that sense because Houston saw very little change, but Lubbock saw a big change. Well, they're very different in what sense? Well, there's the incomes are different.
Yep.
The access to healthcare is different. The
Sure.
sex ratios are different. The marital rates are different.
Yep.
All of these factors that are directly related to
Yeah.
contraception and fertility decisions are so it's like it probably is related to
It's
differential
a
response.
stretch, my argument.
Yeah, but it still could be like, yeah, but my point is that it's probably that so the treatment effects could how big those are is like, how much so my whole thing is not it's not that I am like it's not that I am like committed to the idea that I know that treatment effects are gigantically diverse. It's more like I think I am agnostic. I think that's my prior is that I take a position of agnosticism.
Yep.
Because why? Because uh well, I mean there's like it's like a bunch of reasons. Like part of it is that I think it's that Keynes kind of idea that Keynes said whatever he says like everybody right now is thinking things based on some dead economist. He said
Hmm.
that phrase like we're thinking the way we are because some dead economists said these things 50 years ago. And there's a sense in which like I think about heterogeneous treatment effects because Angrist and Imbens wrote that local average treatment effect paper in 94.
Hmm.
And that just embraced heterogeneous treatment effects. Just said, we're not even going to assume it. We're not going to put any structure on it. We're going to say what exactly will happen if you have heterogeneous treatment effects. And then they're
Yep.
like, so then I just kind of take the position. I'm like, well, if you think as an experimentalist, and an experimentalist literally takes the position of I don't know what I'm going to find. Right? I don't know what I'm
Right.
going to find. Maybe this COVID vaccine is going to have a big effect on COVID symptoms and transmission, and maybe it will have no effect.
Yep.
Right? It's like I don't know the answer. If that's your position that you take this like they call it unbounded or unrestricted heterogeneous treatment effects, then the diff and diff literature is not nonsense because it
You better
embraces it.
do it.
You better do it.
Are you familiar with Pascal's wager?
Yeah.
I feel like this is the econometric equivalent of Pascal's wager.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so like my understanding of Pascal's wager is basically this idea is like it's an argument for why one might want to go ahead and believe in God or
Right.
a God, which is like if it turns out there is a God, you're going to be happier if you believed in him, right?
I'm gonna
But
tell
just in
Pedro
case,
Bacon.
yeah, just in case. So I feel like here, like this is like the Pascal's wager of diff and diff, which is
Yeah,
like if it turns out there's
exactly. That's
heterogeneous
right.
treatment effects, you're much
It-
better off having believed in them to begin with.
yeah,
Okay.
It's Bacon's wager.
Bacon's wager.
Bacon's
Oh,
wager. I'm
all
gonna call it
right.
that from now on. Just
Okay.
be on the safe side and just assume heterogeneous treatment effects and
Okay.
just don't do that regression.
All
All
right.
right. So average causal response on the treated is how much does the outcome change if I increase it by a tiny amount? And that's kind of what we've been talking about.
Yes.
The average causal response on the treated is the curve. All right. So
Yes.
like it's a derivative. It's not the curve. I'm sorry. It's the derivative of the curve.
Right.
Right. So it's like you could draw a straight line, right? And that's like, to go from one to another, or you could say if it's truly continuous, then it's the slope,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Fastest we've ever made it through a slide.
Yeah, I know exactly. All right, so here we go. We did this a minute ago. So you're
Yep.
this person, I'm this
Yep.
person.
Yep.
We use diff and diff and we have our ATTs, but we then compare to one another. Then what we do is we like compare to one another. And the point here is that all right, if I compare that right there, that's not the average causal response function. That right there is the average causal response on the treated. It's to move for you from 50 to 100. But if I compare me and you, then I will get that part and I'll get this part. And so there is always in this comparison, even with parallel trends, there'll always
Yep.
be this little selection bias.
So
Unless, and you
let,
said it earlier, what?
well, I was going to make a Texas. I was going to make a Texas argument. So suppose I'm stuck on distance, Scott.
Yeah,
So suppose we have Houston, which has very little change in distance, and we
yeah,
have Lubbock, which has a big change in distance. And so we compare like their changes and outcomes, right?
yeah.
But maybe Houston had a small change for a reason and wouldn't have been as responsive or would have been more responsive, I don't know, absent that change. Like the idea is that they have
Right.
different responses.
Yeah. Because, and you know what? If that's true, like they can have different responses. It's in the grouping of it, the average, but let's say like it's those two. If you have a group of counties that have the big number and the small number, the
Mhm.
only reason that these curves for those groups are different is that there's heterogeneous treatment effects and non-random assignment. Right, the assignment of dose is based on the treatment effects,
Right, right.
and that'll
Okay.
give you the split. That'll give you the split.
Hmm.
So,
Mhm.
what do you need? What do you need in order to estimate the ATT? What do you need to get in order to do any of these? Well, to get ATTs, you use diff and diff. What do you need for diff and diff? Parallel trends. Just parallel trends. You need it to be that like that if you're going to get that ATT for you, you look at the groups of people whose dose did not change. You look at those that did change. You look at the before and after, and you just do the diff and diff. It's
But
the
they
only
have to
way.
have started. Sorry, but I'm confused about that. How are we conditioning on them being the same type?
No. So if you want to get this, uh, let's say it's you. All right. So let's say it's like Caitlin, after treatment, Y is 200. The outcome is 200. Caitlin, before treatment, Y equals 50. So Caitlin, after minus before is 200 minus 50, it's 150.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And you're we will call you you're going to be Caitlin is a uh, dose of 100. All right. You're going to be a dose of 100 person.
Okay.
Okay. Because you're going to be over here. You're going to be this person.
Well, wait,
All
wait,
right.
wait. But okay. But maybe we should make it match this, just to make sure that we're like kind of completely on the same page. Maybe we should make it match the graph. So my dose is 100 milligrams, and treatment here, this is where I get confused about what the dose is, because what I do see is like if I get 100 milligrams, my outcome is like 45, let's say.
Yeah, 45 reduction in headache symptoms.
45 reduction in headache symptoms, whatever that means. Um,
Yeah. All right, we'll change it. Yep. Okay.
okay.
So
And
it's
I
going to
see
be
if my
one.
dose is 50 milligrams, it would have been like a 35 reduction in headache symptoms.
Yeah, it's actually okay. Sorry. No, Caitlin. So the difference is not the ATT. We're going to get the ATT with diff and diff. So
Okay.
this right here is, let's just say this is, we'll say this, I'll try to engineer it. All right. So we're going to say this is we'll say this is 110. All right. And this is going to be 110. So this is going to be a 90. So I just need to make sure that this next person's difference is 50. So I think I can do it. Um, so this A is Scott is a dose of 0 milligrams because that's I'm gonna have to use my for to get diff and diff. I'm gonna have to use a zero dose person to do this. So we're gonna say
Okay.
Scott is a dose of 0 milligrams. He never takes aspirin, right? But
Okay.
before Caitlin took after Scott's headaches, after Caitlin took it after treatment, his is we'll say that his was 75. And then
Okay.
Scott, before Caitlin took it, let's say that that was, we need that to be a 90. We need to get to a 40. So that needs to be a 50. So that's going to be 25. All right. So that's his before. So Scott after minus before is 75 minus 25, 50. All
Okay.
right. So now the two by two is Caitlin after minus Caitlin after minus before
Yep.
minus Scott after minus before
Yep.
equals 90 minus 50 equals 40. And that's what that number is right there, more or less. That
Okay.
is, and so this is the ATT if parallel trends.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's it. So if parallel
Yep.
trend, all right.
Okay.
So that will, and so if we have parallel trends, I can get this person's and I can get that person's. Now I can't
Okay.
connect them. I cannot connect
Right.
them,
But
but
you
I
could
can get
calculate each one.
exactly. I can
Okay.
calculate each one.
I understand
So,
now. Yep.
and if a person says, "Oh, well, then all I got to do is give everybody an extra amount, and it'll do this," you say, "No, that won't do that unless I'm willing to do one more assumption," which you said earlier what that was, and that was strong parallel trends. And strong parallel trends is to say that everybody is benefiting the same in both groups. It is to
Uh-huh.
assume away selection bias. That's
Yes.
all it is.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. All right. So this is what it means. Two counties. Eastland has a 50-mile distance change and Lubbock has a 100-mile. All right. This is
Okay.
not right, but it's like, does it? The
Sure. We'll
doses
go
are
with it.
different. The doses are different. They're not randomly assigned. Standard parallel trend says they would have had the same baseline marriage rate trend absent any clinic closures. Strong parallel trend says, and if they had both been at 50, they'd have had the same response.
Yes. Got it.
That's what strong parallel
It's that they
trend is.
respond the same way to the same shock.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a strong statement.
Yes, it is.
A
Yep.
strong statement, especially in quasi-experimental work where the treatment is not random.
Mm-hmm.
If it's random, then you can start buying into it. And if it's not quasi-random, then you're like going, well, these guys are different.
Mm,
And you start thinking about all the things that shape the decisions of women and so forth. And then all of a sudden you're like, well,
yeah.
these are not. So all it means though is that, well, you might not be able to make the link. You could still get the
Right.
ATTs, but you may not be able to link them.
Eastland might have responded a lot more to a shock than Lubbock, for
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So, all right. Do we want to? So we have now gone for
Ooh.
an hour.
Yeah, we got to stop
We
asking
gotta stop.
our possibly two audience members at this
That's
point.
right. We're chasing them off. All right. So that's basically so everything from how now on is the estimator. And I think that might be a
Okay.
good place to
So
stop.
we've
So,
got parallel trends versus strong parallel trends now.
yep.
Um, I know which Tolstoy novel a famous quote comes from.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting stuff done here.
What else did we do? We learned about Shockley.
We learned about Shockley. Pascal's
You
wager, we're
thought you
covered it
only were
all.
able to you named a couple of productivity enhancements that you thought were going to come
Yeah,
from it. Yep.
yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say it's going to enhance all mine. Maybe I can catch up with you. That's my goal. I got to catch up with Caitlin. I need to like literally like do life support on all of mine with Claude
I don't know
because
about my research, but I feel like I'm gonna get my hair done more often and my toenails. I'm gonna get pedicures more often, but
you're
not
going to do
manicures
it.
because I can't talk to Claude while my
Right.
nails are being.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, guess where I'm going tomorrow?
Where are you going tomorrow, Scott?
I'm in Scotland right now. I'm in Glasgow.
Okay.
I wrapped up a week of diff and diff
Yeah.
and synthetic control, and I'm going to Coachella, third annual Coachella conference in Madrid.
My gosh, is that my favorite city in the world? Yes, it is.
Is it? Is it your favorite? We do this
Madrid is
every
the
year.
best city. Okay, hot take. Don't everybody yell at me.
Yeah.
But Madrid is the best city in the world. Yes, absolutely. It is the
That's your
perfect
favorite?
size. Yes. It is the perfect size. I love the
Mm,
heights of the buildings. I love the balconies. I love the street life. I love the fact that every block you can stop twice for like a Spanish vermouth and a cigarette. Not that I would have one, but you could if you wanted. And some aceitunas, those little like yellow hard olives I mean,
yeah.
oh my gosh. And the people are nice and the museums are amazing. I
Yeah.
love Madrid. How
I
do I
think
love you? Let me count the
that's a really
ways.
good. Here we'll end on this. Here's a good example of heterogeneous treatment effects. In America, if someone is smoking, it is kind of gross, but
Oh yeah,
in
absolutely.
Spain, it's actually pretty cool. Everybody over here when they smoke, I think, yeah,
Ew.
I don't know why it looks cool when y'all do it, and then back home it does not look cool.
It just
It looks
obviously
cooler.
I'm pretty sure, yeah, talking about heterogeneous treatment effects, I'm pretty sure smoking is very bad for you everywhere. But
That's different. It's which is cooler, which looks cooler. Which looks
okay.
cooler. They look cool all the beautiful people over here smoke.
Oh my good.
Anyway,
Yeah. The
I
other
shouldn't have put all
thing,
that. That's all,
okay,
I
now
probably
I'm
shouldn't
really
put
going
this
to
on
get in
it.
trouble for this, but I want you to pay attention to this, Scott. The
Yeah.
Spanish police are
Yeah.
the most attractive people on the planet. They are like without exception, every single one wildly attractive.
Wildly attractive. Well,
What
I'm
is
gonna
up
look.
with that? Well, yeah, like what is up with that?
All right. All right. I'm
Okay.
gonna have my
I've
eyes
given you
peeled.
all of my pointers on my favorite
I'm
city.
gonna come back smoking, talking about next week. I'm gonna come back smoking, talking about these very attractive policemen we just saw. Deal. All right.
Have fun.
Well, it's good to see you.
It is good to see you, and I'm
Always good to
looking
see
forward
you.
to continuing this next week.
Me too. All
All right.
right. Bye
Bye.
bye.